this year because it's Beth's still the dean, and I report directly to her. So she's still around. I don't know if you've seen her, but she's around. She's still the dean. My research over the years has mostly been on issues around homelessness, primarily among U.S. veterans and other post-military service issues that our military veterans face. And so I've done a lot of work with the VA and then also locally with the state of Utah in particular on homelessness issues. The CPD is such a huge part of our college. Yet it's part of our college that, to be honest with you, most of the people in the college don't really understand and don't really know about what you're doing over here. And that's not your fault necessarily. I don't know if it's necessarily our fault over on the academic side. It's just that we haven't really, I think, found a great way to work together all the time. And that's something that I've been interested in a number of years, and Matt and I have had many discussions about how we can synergize our relative strengths to really come out ahead on both sides, not even sides, together in this work that we do. So I'm excited to see that there are some of our faculty fellows that are going to be presenting their work. We're going to continue that program into the next calendar year. And I think we'd like to find other ways to bridge across from the larger college to the CPD going forward. I think there are, as we move into, I think both entities are expanding and growing, yet resources are not expanding and growing at a similar pace. So we have to find ways to use those resources more effectively and efficiently. And I think working together is one of those ways to do that. So we recognize the CPD as a huge economic engine in the larger university and certainly our college. We value the work that you all do. We appreciate your work. We're supportive of Matt. We know that it can be difficult when a new leader comes in and has maybe a different vision than the prior and tries to enact changes. And we're grateful for you for working along with him in his role. So, yeah, any questions for me from the college perspective that I could, or comments or criticisms? Richard.
Just a comment. Now you see us as more than just an economic engine, right?
Oh, yes, of course. Of course.
Just wanted that on the record, that we're not just dollars and cents.
Absolutely. No, like as I said, we value your work and the programs that you're supporting and developing. I think there's some missed opportunities for sure between what we do in the college academically and what you're doing here. I think, for example, I think getting faculty who have more of a research agenda could work with you to get the word out about what you're doing a little more effectively, and I think you can help them in their work. And so it's a synergistic thing, I think. So I appreciate that comment. Tell me I don't know your name.
I'm George Shakel, and I work at WebAIM.
Okay.
We have web accessibility. And,
yeah.
Along with what you're saying, since I've been at the CPD for 3 years now, and I've always thought that there's just this massive treasure trove of data, and the data is real-world things that are being done, and unfortunately, I think a lot of people at the center don't have necessarily the time to conduct the research because they're so busy doing real-world things,
the work,
and making a difference. But I just think there's so much really good opportunities for research here that I think could cut across a lot of different departments in the college.
Yeah, excellent. I appreciate that comment. I might let Sean speak to that a little bit too, but I agree with you 100%. Others? Okay, well, it's a pleasure to be with you here today, and we're going to kind of hang out for a little while and get a feel for how this goes. 2-hour meeting. I don't know if I can make it that long, but the pumpkin cookies sound great. But
I'm going to clip this. All right. I never use a microphone, even when I teach 200 students at once because I'm so loud, so I don't even know how to clip it on my lapel. Good afternoon. I'm Sean Whiteman. I am the new Interim Associate Dean for Research for the college. I am a professor of Human Development and Family Studies. To give you a brief background of my work, I study how adolescent brothers and sisters' relationships with each other, both directly and indirectly, shape their health risk behaviors. I have funding from the NIH to study basically how brothers and sisters influence each other's substance use behaviors, all the way from alcohol, marijuana, and ever timely, e-cigarettes. I also have funding from NIH to study military families. And there's some overlap in the college that people don't, so we're studying the long-term implications of a military member's deployment on youth development into their adolescence. So kids that had one of their parents deploy when they were early childhood, and looking at the lasting implications of that deployment for the family system, and I focus on sibling relationships. So this is a bit about my research background and where I position myself personally. I'm really excited. This is my first year. I have in the interim associate dean role. I've been in the role for all of 4 months. I am learning a lot. I have very large shoes to fill as I've learned more and more. Jameson is here. He was formerly in this position. One of the ways that you guys will likely interface with me is I am the approver for college proposals on grants. I am the last person that signs off in the college before it goes on to SPO. And so I am, in some ways, the person that's checking to make sure that all of college policies have been followed. And our general policy is that we charge full indirects on any grant proposal unless there is documentation that notes that that can't be charged. And if there's documentation, we have never declined it. We just ask that documentation be provided if the funding agency cannot provide or will not provide the full indirect cost rates. We need those indirect costs to run our college, to run our offices, to run critical aspects of the CPD. And so although they sometimes come out of the budget, they are critical to the infrastructure that we provide to hopefully support your proposal activities. And so I'm happy to talk to you if you ever have questions about this. As I said, I'm learning myself. I've interfaced with few of you through this channel, not many, because most things are following the college policies just fine. Our goal in the Office of Research Services in the college, that's the interim associate dean's, or the associate dean for research's office, is to facilitate the research of the college, and the CPD is part of the college. If there's anything that we can do to help you with your research program, we are here to help. We have 2 full-time statisticians that are there to provide help with dissemination, with planning of grants. Traditionally, or to date, CPD hasn't been a great user of those services, but we are there to help you, as well as we are members of the various departments of the college. And so please don't hesitate if you have questions in your grant planning, in your paper writing, the treasure trove of data that may be available. We have a data scientist, Tyson Barrett, whose specialty is data management and data analytics, who could possibly help with such large-scale things and how to use it. The other exciting thing, as Matt and Jameson developed last year, that we're just about ready to announce via email, and just need approval for one more person tomorrow, before we announce it, is the continuation of the CPD Faculty Fellows Program. And that's a program in which at least one CPD staff or researcher pairs up with one of the academic side faculty members and proposes a synergistic project. It can be to analyze existing data sets. It could be new data projects. We have some deliverables that we expect, but it's an opportunity to try to provide resources to a team to help achieve a goal that is desirable for both the college and the CPD. The college at large and CPD. Eduardo and Lisa will be talking about their proposal and the successful things that they've done this past year and what they have coming up in November, which they'll be working very hard on and probably look like this by the time they're done. Is it creepy to have me looking over me?
Probably normal.
I just realized that. Yeah, to get double glare? So are there any questions or comments? We'll deliver all criticism to my right, but I'm happy to take questions. No. Questions, comments, concerns, anything that I can do to help. Again, our goal in the Office of Research Services is to facilitate the research mission of the college, and that includes your research mission here as a part of the CPD.
So can I just echo one thing, maybe accentuate one thing? So, I mean, in the services that are offered in the office that Sean is directing, I mean, you can basically go there and ask for assistance, help me analyze these data and like write up the paper. Or I want to collect these kind of data. Can you help me make a questionnaire like Qualtrics or RedCap? Yeah, RedCap preferred. And then how to deploy it and send it out to my participants or whoever. If you need help, one thing I kind of wondered about over the years with CPD is you're doing a lot of work, like you say, it's applied, not necessarily in the research area. So there's this whole IRB, monster that's lurking in the shadows when you want to do research, and maybe you don't know how to navigate that IRB space. Well, our office can certainly help give you some guidance. In fact, the college has a person, or will have, a person who is an IRB coordinator who's housed right over there in our education building for that purpose, to help walk you through the IRB process. So there are a lot of resources that are available. We've tried to kind of remove all the excuses as much as possible about getting research out. So we're here to serve and to help. We want to make that clear.
We view ourselves, as Jameson said, as a service unit for the college. So please, let us know how we can help you.
All right.
Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Sean and Jameson. It's weird to have this microphone. So, Michael, are they picking up the sound okay? All right, perfect. Yeah. We've got, how many people are online? Just curious. 16 people, okay. Perfect. Okay. Well, as both Sean and Jameson pointed out, there are resources in the college. I think sometimes we feel like we're here alone, and we're not. There's a lot of resources out there that we can leverage and that actually don't cost us anything. With relation to the indirect issue, I know that not everybody interfaces with that, but if you do interface with it, you can thank your returned indirect for this room. So, and the renovation and the technology and everything in here. So the indirect that we do get back from the university does go to a good use that hopefully benefits the entire center. So it is an important aspect to pay attention to. Okay, man, this is a touchy mouse. We're going to go through a few new staff. I like to point out the new staff that we've hired since our last meeting. Our last meeting was in May, and we have a bunch of new folks who we brought on here. I don't know if everybody's here. I see Sean back there. So yeah, Sean's in the back. But in the services division, in our early intervention up to 3 programs, we brought on Jake Penrose. Is Jake here? Oh, Jake, you're over there. There you are. Jake Penrose, Kirani, am I saying that right? There we go. Okay, Kirani Bennett, Kevin's there. Oh yeah, we're all here. Kevin's here and Sean. So we're excited to have a whole new slate of, 2 speech pathologists, which, I don't know, we've waited a long time to get some speech pathologists on. So thank you for being, and I think, Jake, you were like, the straw in the needle in the haystack. Finding a physical therapist to come on to replace Kurt was difficult. But yeah, you're probably the only person who's more qualified than Kurt. So, no, I'm teasing. In DSL, and I think some of the folks in DSL are on, we've got three new aides down there, Courtney Campbell, Matthew Heiner, who is of relation to another Heiner that we may or may not know.
Goes by Justice.
Yeah, goes by Justice. Okay, all right. So, yeah, because we don't want too many Matthews around here, for sure. Yeah. And then Lauren Smith, and then for the Self-Advocacy Speakers Network in Salt Lake, which is Amy Notwell's program. We brought on Miranda Clegg and Courtney Campbell to be part of that group. So that's really exciting to see that self-advocate group grow. going to try not to touch this. In research and training, Teresa Larson, many of you knew Teresa sitting over here. She was a graduate assistant last year as an MSW student, and she's finally come on full time. And kind of replacing Teresa is Hadis right next to her, who is also an MSW student who will be working with us in various research and training projects this year. And then Andres Brown, is Andres here? I don't think so. Andres is also working with our MHDD project in the research and training division. And he's a new graduate student from HDFS. The Family Place brought on several new video coders, and I don't think any of these people are here, but most of them are in Salt Lake or around the state. Is that correct?
They're actually all here locally.
Oh, they're all here
doing
locally.
assessments.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, they only work when they have assessments to do, but Tasha Olson, Emma Robinson, McKay Milne, Brian Sessions, Kyle Hatch, and Daniel Howell are on for that project. In terms of the TA division has got 4 new people. In TASE, Whitney Howard and Lauren Lima came on. So Whitney, there's one too, right there. I should have people stand up and be really uncomfortable, but I won't do that. And then WebAIM has brought on Allison Bell and Anna Williams-Gilchrist. So we're really excited to see the growth there. WebAIM has needed some additional help, and we're glad that you've got it. So. In the administration division, I'm sorry, Dave, you're the sole picture on this slide. Hopefully everybody has met Dave. If you haven't met Dave, then I know you haven't been to work in several months. Dave, at some point I'm going to stop referring to you as the new Julie, but Dave is the new front desk guy, and we're glad to have you here. In the administration division, we also house the public school partnership and the VISTA project, and I think they're all out doing their work. They work all across the Wasatch Front, but the fall is when we bring on all the new PSP VISTA members who are also now considered CPD employees. So Angie Torres, Mackenzie Atwood, Dylan Harper, Clayton Welch, Darby Atkins, Carlissa Openshaw, then Trell Fonsbeck, Carly Meadows, Annabella Hunt, Olivia Hunt, and then Seth Van Middlesworth have all come on through the AmeriCorps program. So if you see people wandering around on the first floor who look somewhat lost, they are primarily out at their sites in the community, but occasionally come by here for training. Please make them feel welcome. All right. So I think that's it in terms of staff. We haven't hired, I know this is going to seem odd, we haven't hired that many staff in the last few months. Yeah, last time we had a way more. General updates and announcements. I want to get some of this out of the way before we jump into heavy content, and I'm going to really try to watch my time here. Yeah. Just in terms of general announcements for everyone to be aware of, the Research and Training Division has undergone a slight restructuring. Mark Innocenti is on phased retirement, and Mark was the division director there. Because of his phased retirement and because Mark just doesn't have time to be a full-time administrator and division director, Mark is stepping down as the division director and is going to be helping me with some center-wide program evaluation projects and publication efforts. That is Mark's real strength, and Mark is, some of you have already received an email from me indicating that Mark will be reaching out to work with you in your projects around that evaluation process. But the Research and Training Division over the next year has a leadership team comprised of Jeff Sheen, Sachin Pavithran, and Jen Morgan, who are going to be heading that up and really working on restructuring and reorganizing that division. So I sent an email out a couple weeks ago about that, but just to reemphasize that shift. So if Mark comes around looking for data, you know why. That's kind of what his job is going to be here. Also, kind of just random, these are just random announcements. Room remodeling and usage. All the rooms that have been remodeled are up on the CPD intranet and can be scheduled. So this is, of course, one of them. 205 has new chairs. We're trying to update all of our rooms here so that they're reasonable to meet in. But this room particularly has a whole bunch of new technology. There's a whole bunch of technology in here. Sound system, all sorts of stuff. We haven't quite got it all in, but we're close. if you need an orientation to using the technology in this room, please contact Michael Jepson about that, and he can give you an orientation. Hidden behind here are all sorts of bells and whistles and control. No, there is quite a bit here, and it takes a bit to figure out how to navigate, but it should support almost every device that you might have. So talk to Michael about that. Another thing that's come up over the past couple months is accessible captioning. More and more people are paying attention to ensuring that our content is accessible, and that is an outstanding thing. Unfortunately, we've kind of overwhelmed Christopher Phillips. And he sent me an email saying, there's a lot of people contacting me about this, which is good. But he says there's a lot of online resources at the URL up there, accessibility.usu.edu/captions, for captioning and transcripting your videos. So Christopher Phillips is asking that you all kind of go through that avenue first and use the resources that are available there. There are companies that the university is contracted with that make it affordable and accessible for everybody. So again, please use those and make sure you're checking all of your products for accessibility before you disseminate them. And then finally, just another kind of unrelated thing, Alex Shewall is going to be disseminating a survey over the next month looking for content expertise. Many of you know that last year we had a contract with Hanover Research to help support some of our grant writing efforts. One of the things that Hanover did for us was grant prospecting, helping take ideas and connect them with funders. Because we did not renew that contract with Hanover, we still have that need. And part of Alex's role is going to be taking your ideas and connecting them with funders, or vice versa, finding funders and connecting them to you. So Alex has put together a survey. She's going to send it out. Essentially what it's asking for is, what is your area of specialization and content expertise, so that as she looks for resources, she kind of knows who to target those to. So anything else about that, Alex? It's only 5 questions, yeah. They're essay questions. No, I'm yeah, it's actually really quick and easy. So please watch for that, and please provide that information to Alex when you get it. I recognize that not everybody writes grants, but if you want to get into the game, which everybody should at some point, it's a strange desire to have, but everybody should have that desire. This is a good way to get on Alex's radar and start getting matched up with opportunities. Okay. Oh, the formatting on this changed. So my next item here is kind of related to social media, but kind of something that's come up over the past little bit that I wanted to just highlight for everybody. There's been just some interesting stuff that's happened on social media, and then just in general dissemination of our products that I think is important to note. Number one, we're really good at sharing information and sharing other people's information, and sometimes we're reticent to toot our own horn. And many of you are content experts and are widely regarded in your fields nationally, in the state, some internationally, and I think it's really important that we be aware of the importance of promoting our efforts. Actually, I got an email just yesterday about marketing efforts here. And sometimes the best marketing efforts that we can do is our own efforts to promote our programs and to reach out and to share the good work that we do. We don't have a budget for a marketing consultant yet. Occasionally some projects hire a consultant to do some of this work, but we do have social media, we do have our website, we have other ways to get information out about what we do. And as we get information out about what we do, people frequently find us and come to us to really to help them do what they need to do. This has largely been TASE's business model. So the TA division, TASE, there has largely been word of mouth, and as they've done good work and as they've promoted that good work, others have come to them, and it's really grown into a large, thriving operation. And it's important that I think all of us recognize that and take that into account as we do our work. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to hire a digital media intern. This is Kelly has primarily been the only person running around taking pictures and video and doing promotion stuff. Next week, a digital media intern will come on. She'll be here only 10 hours a week, but her job is going to be to go around and gather video, pictures, information, and really help you promote what you do and highlight that through our various channels. But also I'm asking that you consider how you can share what it is that you do. Do you have photos? Do you have videos? Are you willing to write a blog post for our blog? Our blog is the most highly trafficked part of our website. We get, I don't know, Jolynn, is Jolynn here? There you, oh, there you are. How many thousands of people go to that? A lot. I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, depending on the post, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think like Mary Ellen's post that she wrote last year had thousands and thousands of people that went to it and really heightened the conversation around accessibility and travel. So if you have the ability to do that, please reach out and share that information with us. A lot of people say, well, why aren't people paying attention to me? And it's not that we don't want to. It's sometimes that you have to take a little time and effort to toot your own horn. So I know I don't want you to be too proud, but also, you know, make sure that you're letting us know what you do. People, that little comment I make there at the bottom, people don't just know that we do good work. It doesn't just float in the air. We often need to show people how we do the work that we do. So again, please watch for this digital media intern. Contact Jolynn and Kelly if you have things, events, content, products that you want to share so that we can get the word out. So, okay, that's it. That's my soapbox. I'm done. All right, so the rest of the meeting is actually others to kind of look at highlighting the good work that we do. So Lisa and Eduardo are going to give us a CPD Faculty Fellows report. So are you ready?
I am, but Lisa is not here.
Lisa is right behind you. Okay, no, thanks, Jameson. Okay. All right. Oh, I need to give you the mic. There is that.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Can you grab that mic? Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Always is great to have the opportunity to talk with my fellow colleagues in this great organization that we are working. Today, we are going to talk about the project that we have developed with Dr. Lisa Voice in Ecuador. Just a 30 seconds introduction. This project has a long history. It has 10 years. I was looking at the dates of our work that we have been doing with Ecuador and the university there. So it is not new. I think it is a product of an evolving process. We have done a lot of work there, and we are happy that we are going to continue with the support of the CPD, that we have a memorandum of understanding last year between Utah State University and the Center for Persons with Disabilities. So, say that in a 30 seconds introduction. Lisa.
Thank you. So the part of the CPD fellowship that we're doing is we had proposed, so because I am in an administrative position, I don't have the option to do a buyout. And so we proposed to use the funding from what would have been a course buyout to hire coders and to get some of our data entered. And we have a slide in just a second that kind of summarizes that. But this is just an overview of our largest project there, where we're looking at toddler caregiving from various caregivers in their environment in several different regions in Ecuador. The data we've collected with our students at the University of Casa Grande in Ecuador includes the Bailey scales of infant development. We have language and cognitive scores there. We're also looking at maternal mental health. We're accessing domestic violence information, as well as parenting stress and other family characteristics like machismo, different caregiving practices that the caregivers are doing with the children. And then we've also video recorded parent-child interaction that we're coding Piccolo parenting behaviors focused on responsiveness, encouragement, teaching, and affection. And that's a scale that Mark Innocenti helped develop. So let me do the next slide. Help me there. Okay. So this is a map of the different areas in Ecuador that we have data from that currently that we have the 225. You can see that it's very diverse, as Eduardo would say. And the area that has been really timely, I guess, that we have data from is in the Amazon. And so this area, all the area to the, Vanna, will you take care of that? Yeah, show 'em. Sure. No, you're being Vanna. I'm sorry. You probably don't know that. So, sorry, that was rude. Like, he didn't grow up watching that, whatever, you flip the tiles. Yeah, anyway, you were doing just fine, showing them the Amazon area. So that's where we're getting Amazon. Yes, we'll do that later. Okay. I'll get them high heels too. So, okay, so we can, that's kind of, we have data from a lot of different areas there. Okay, so the student involvement that we've been able to really kind of leverage with the funding for the course buyout through the CPD fellowship is we have currently 18 graduate students that we've worked with in Ecuador, where Eduardo and I have co-chaired their theses. And this is how we've been able to collect the data without having any funding. And so as Eduardo and I have made different trips over there, we've trained them on data collection. We work with them on lit review. Well, Eduardo works with them on lit review. And then I and both of us help with the data analyses and data management. Then at Utah State, currently, as kind of a match with the CPD fellowship, my department, HGFS, has funded 3 semesters of RAs, so 1 student, 2 semesters, and then we've added in another student this semester to help us get this data published. And then we have 12 undergraduate students who we are training and supervising, and they're doing the video coding, data entry, also some lit review, and then we're working with them on helping develop their research skills and doing some presentations as well. So quickly, our specific goals were manuscripts. We're focusing on 3 manuscripts. Excuse me, and then a grant application that Eduardo will talk about. But the manuscript that we have that's just about to be submitted is looking at the family characteristics and diet diversity in this Amazon region. Just a little bit of background. There's over 155 million children worldwide that experience stunting or growth faltering. And almost 30% of kids in Ecuador are experiencing some level of stunting. So the stunting is kind of a marker for that neurological development that the body's competing with infectious diseases, with just not having enough nutrition, as well as oftentimes there's a correlate of poverty and lack of psychosocial stimulation. And so these kids just really, right from the beginning, really struggle with some of just that basic neurological development. So what we found, we haven't been able to do too much modeling or real analyses to look at all the factors and all the data that we've looked at or gathered. But in general, what we've found is that the toddler's language development was negatively related to stunting, as we would expect, but positively related to mom education. And these kids are 18 months old, and they're scoring a little over 2 standard deviations below the mean on language on average. Their cognitive score isn't too bad yet, but a lot of that is because the expectation at 18-month-olds isn't as developed, and so we're likely to see that kind of drop off. One thing that's a little bit concerning that we're not exactly sure how to address, or if we should, is just that 52% of moms wanted the pregnancy. So 48%, half of these moms did not want to be pregnant. And so thinking of that as a starting place, and only a few of them, only 24% of them had the diet diversity that would just be a minimum level. That these kids they're in really tough straits, I guess, which then kind of leads us to what we would like to do about it.
Thank you. So just 15 seconds about the fascinating sample that we have. It is about Shuar. Shuar is a group of indigenous population in the Amazon jungle that there are a few thousand of them in the world with their own language, their own culture, their own tradition. And Ecuador is like that. It's a little bit smaller than Colorado, 17 million populations, but it has 4 very different regions, the coast, the highlands, the Amazon, and Galapagos. So you have many reasons to go to visit there. And 14 different nations and 13 different pueblos. So a fascinating place to do research. And that's why we come here to the next step, that it is an NIH grant proposal that we are developing with Lisa. It is a big mountain that we already are climbing. This is an opportunity that is called Global Brain and Nervous System Disorders Research Across Lifespan. It is an R01 grant proposal, so it is a big funding opportunity, $500,000 per year during 5 years, so it's a big grant. And the deadline is November 7th, so it is getting close. What they are looking for is develop a collaborative research project between the United States and a low and middle income country scientists, in this case from Ecuador. So the work that we have been doing with the universities there and with these new graduate professionals have created the basis for this work that we are doing. Also, is to study brain and other nervous system functions and disorders throughout life relevant to a low-middle income country. It includes neurological, mental, and behavioral disorders. So it applies to what we are doing and contribute to the long-term goals of building sustainable research capacity in those countries to address nervous system development, function, and impairment throughout life. So the idea is to build capacity building, and this capacity building is for an ongoing relation that we have with our colleagues in this case in Ecuador. So what we want to do, our project aims, what we want to develop? First, we want to adopt intervention that has been developed already that is called Buenas Bases. Well, it is translation. It was called Sound Beginning or Good Beginning. And we want to adapt this intervention for this cultural adaptation that applies to different places in Ecuador. As I told you at the beginning, it's a very diverse country. For delivery to adolescent mothers living in rural areas in Ecuador. Ecuador, unfortunately, has one of the highest rates of teen mothers. So it gives us the opportunity to work with this issue. It's one of the highest in the region, in the Latin American region, and give us the opportunity also to learn about issues that apply to this grant. Also, we want to assess the effectiveness of these interventions. That one of the interventions is just a group-based intervention, and the other intervention is a group-based plus home visiting. So we want to know how effective is each of those. And also we are going to have a comparison group because there are some programs that are already working, doing some early intervention work at the national level in the country. In fact, there are 2 programs that are going to be the basis for our randomized cluster sample that we need to select. That is coming from one program is serving 200,000 children from 0 to 3 years, and the other program is serving to 100,000 children from 1 to 3 years at the center basis. So we already have developed the relationship not only with the university but also with the government. We already have a letter of support of the Ministry of Welfare that is good that we have it already here. It is in Spanish though. We need to do some follow-ups with the English translation. What is the other aim that we want to learn from this grant proposal? The other aim that we want to know is the cost effectiveness. Cost effectiveness, the economic piece, the financial piece is an important part, because if we want to make it self-sustained, we need to know how much it is going to cost and how much it is contributing to the development of the young children. So the cost effectiveness piece, to know how much it costs for the one intervention that it is group basis only, and the other intervention that it is group basis plus home visiting, is going to be an important factor. Money is important everywhere, especially in those low and middle income countries where resources are more limited. And based on the time, because I would love to keep talking, but I know time is money here. The last aim that we want to learn from this proposal is to identify the risks and protective factors. What is making the difference, mediating the outcomes for cognitive and neurodevelopmental outcomes that we are going to measure. So, say that we already have 2 teams that we have been working. We were looking for collaborators here in the United States, nationwide, and everybody is excited. In this case, we have 2 different teams. One that is going to be the intervention team, and the other one the evaluation team. The evaluation part is Lisa is leading, including Sonia Rodriguez from Utah University of Casa Grande, Spencer Bradshaw, who is an expert in FNIRS. FNIRS is these imaging measures that we want to implement there as part of our measures. Sarah Schwartz from USU is the data analyst. I think is one of the full-time analysts here in-house that we do have. And Jill Luoto, who is an economist of RAND Cooperation, that is in California, and she is one of the investigators who work in the developing of this good Buenas Bases intervention that was already implemented in Kenya and Pakistan, and now we want to adopt in Ecuador. And the other team is the one that I'm going to lead as a PI with Marcela Santos from Utah Universidad Casa Grande. She was the national director of the early program in Ecuador, serving more than 300,000 children. And we know because we were working with her before at the Ministry of Education. Patricia Ordóñez, she's a pediatrician in Ecuador. We already have some collaboration working with her, and we already have even publication in Young Exceptional Children that was a couple months ago already published. We have the support from the Ministry of Welfare, and we also we are fortunate to have in this team Ryan Sidal, who is a faculty at USU and expert in family system. So I would like to leave a couple of minutes if you have any questions that we can try to answer.
I had one. On this stunting, I was looking at the stats on it, and males were so much higher than the females. Is there a reason why that is, or?
Yeah, so sorry. We're using the WHO standards, so they're not U.S. standards, the WHO standards, and there are different plots for the boys and the girls, and this is a common trend in the literature that boys are more likely. And my assumption is that they have more room to not grow, I guess, because the expectations, you expect more growth overall over the lifespan is what I think. But because most of the literature did separate it out, then we went ahead and we're like, oh yeah, that's different than the 36% we had for the entire sample. So it's important for us to follow. There was not a significant difference, though, on the language scores between the boys and the girls, and so that's something that kind of we want to track. Nutrition is, in the U.S., we just take it for granted. So it's been really interesting for us to try to get more background on that. So yeah.
And it's also interesting for this group because they are transitioning, because they are in the Amazon jungle and they are transitioning to a Western diet. So there are some changes in there as well. Jolene, you had some.
You mentioned that you had quite a few students working with you. Could you tell me how many were from USU, how many were from Ecuador?
Oh, it was there.
Different side, yeah, that's okay. So we have 12 undergraduate students at Utah State and 2 doc students at Utah State.
And then the rest were
From Ecuador, yes, yeah.
Right there. Yeah, that's it.
Yes, those are the numbers.
Okay, in the interest of time, I'm going to kick you off. Okay. Sorry. No, I appreciate you sharing. I know, we're not done with you yet, Eduardo. Yeah, we wanted to share this. In January, there were 2 faculty fellows that were funded last year, Eduardo and Lisa, and then Vicki Simmons-Meyer and Mary Ellen Verdoes, and they're going to present in January on their project. But it's an interesting research collaboration. I know that, interesting fact about Ecuador, does anybody know an interesting disability-related trivia fact about Ecuador? What's that?
Is it about cleft palate?
No, it's actually not. Is there one about cleft palate there?
There's a very high statistic of cleft palate babies in their country.
Well, there we go. I didn't know that. I learned some. Okay, perfect. I was going to, so my interesting fact was it's the only sitting head of state who has a disability, right? So the president of Ecuador uses a wheelchair and is the only sitting head of state who has a physical disability. So it's an interesting place to work, I think. Yeah, anyway, thank you. Okay, so we're actually moving right along. We're trying to make this a variety show. But as I said, I want to take some time in each faculty and each staff meeting moving onward to sort of highlight projects that maybe folks don't really know about. So the Faculty Fellows is one. Jen Harvey is here, who's going to tell us about Task 12 and the Utah Sign Language Interpreter programs. Jen has the dubious distinction, I think, of being the fastest PI on CPD record. So she was hired and wrote a large grant and had it funded all within, what, a month or 2 months? A couple months, yeah. Anyway, from start to finish. So anyway, that's a record that if anyone wants to go for that. Anyway, let me switch to your presentation here.
Yeah, I've been playing catch up ever since. I was just telling Leanne, I feel like this month I finally have felt like, okay, things are starting to stabilize a little bit. So I'm going to talk about Task 12 and IMET. So IMET is the Interpreter Mentorship Education and Training Project. It's a new project that we started that all training will happen under as we develop new training projects, then they'll go under that umbrella. So this is where we're housed. We're under TACE. Happy to be there. And the Utah grant that Matt is talking about is actually called the North Star Mentorship Program Project now, and that's under the TA division. So Task 12, what I do, it's training and assessment systems for K through 12 interpreters. So it is essentially we work with member states across the United States in providing assessments to educational interpreters. So right now we have 14 states that are member states. So I travel to all of those states and provide an assessment so that they can get a score to know what the quality of services that they're providing to children who are working teaching in the K through 12 setting. Task 12 was started in 2002. It focused just on assessments and then added training with a program called TIPS, Training for Interpreters in Public Schools in 2007. And then we added mentoring just this last year with a pilot that we were doing with Nebraska. To be a Task 12 member state means that you get a representative that's on the board. As I mentioned, I travel around and provide those assessments, so that's why I'm on the road quite a bit. And another thing that I do besides just proctor for those tests is I collect the data from those tests and create a state report that goes to the special education director and the board representative. It lets them know how their interpreters are doing, where they're doing well, and where they might want to target some more support and training for their interpreters. I also compile all of that data and do an annual report that I offer in the annual meeting as well. Those are the 14 states that I travel to. Utah's the one that's the closest for me to travel. But as you can see, it's not based on region, it's throughout the whole United States. So we're fortunate that we have 14 member states now. We do get inquiries from other states. We're kind of at our max as far as what we can provide right now, but we're always open to looking into other states as well. But it's really fortunate because states that aren't part of Task 12 do struggle getting assessments for their educational interpreters. And so we're consistently contacted by non-Task 12 states asking if their interpreters can sit for the exam, and we have to unfortunately turn them away because we can only allow Task 12 states to take the exam. So it's a really great benefit for those member states. And as we know, a child's education is only as good as the interpreter that's interpreting that education. I mean, they are the bridge to providing access, educational access and linguistic access to their education. So our real focus is on quality of interpreting. It's interesting because back in the day, before ADA and before a lot of the laws, interpreters, American Sign Language interpreters, entered the field usually when they were already fluent in ASL, so had family members who were deaf. That's my situation, or good friends. And so they were already fluent in the language and then began interpreting. As laws were passed and technology changed, that really shifted because the need grew really quickly. And so they needed more interpreters. So a lot of colleges and universities set up training programs, which was really great in helping address the need of quantity, but we're still struggling as far as quality. So that's really what we focus on, is trying to enhance the quality of services that are being provided to deaf adults and deaf youth. So as Matt mentioned, the Public Service Commission, they came out with an RFP asking for assistance with training of interpreters to help with attrition and the quality of the services that interpreters are providing for a state grant, and we were able to secure that grant. It's a $1.5 million grant over 5 years, and we will offer 5 different tracks that we are training for interpreters who are working in different settings or trying to achieve various types of certification. Here in Utah, this is a state grant. You're required to be certified to work in the state of Utah. There's state certification or there's national certification. So we will work with different target populations throughout the year, depending on what the need is, and it also helps us let that need grow before we offer that track again. So we got the grant, and then we opened up 2 tracks, so the NIC and the professional interpreters. So Utah has a tiered system. So one is called the novice, the other one's called the professional. You have to be certified at a professional level or national level to maintain your work as an interpreter here in Utah. So right now we have 2 cohorts in the professional track and 2 cohorts in the NIC track. The NIC is the National Interpreter Certificate, and so that's a nationally recognized certification. And then in the future, we'll offer it to the other tracks. There's the deaf interpreter, so those are interpreters who are actually deaf, who provide specialized interpreting services, and the educational interpreter performance assessment, which is for school-based interpreters, and then novice, those people who are pre-certified, who are coming out of training programs, who are unable to pass the novice certification, we'll start working with them and helping them get certified so that they can start moving their skills up. Our focus is really on two pieces, language development and interpreting development. I already mentioned that often interpreters now are entering the field before they're really fluent in ASL, which has been a real problem in the quality of services that they've been able to provide. So we have a lot of things that we're doing to help enhance their language fluency, to make them more fluent in ASL so that they can be providing better interpreting services. This is really important, especially those who are working with little kids, because little kids are developing their language as well. So if the interpreter that they're working with isn't fluent in that language and that's their language model, then that becomes a language deprivation issue to the student. So we really focus a lot on language development and then help also with their interpreting development. We secured a big team, so we're probably responsible for a lot of those new hires that you've had. These are our language coaches, so all of these language coaches are deaf, native to American Sign Language, and they're the ones that provide all of our language coaching in ASL. It's really fascinating because in addition to North Star, that grant that we are working with Task 12, the states that we work with, those 14 states, are really telling us that they need more mentoring and training and more individualized attention. And so we have a pilot with Nebraska that we just finished, and now are in a full-fledged mentoring program with them. We feel that the other states will be soon ready to sign on as soon as we're ready to take them on. We're still in, finalizing all of our development. But a lot of those interpreters are, the deaf student that they work with is the only deaf person that they know, the only language that they're around as far as ASL. So the Nebraska participants are really telling us that this has been a rich experience to have this interaction with other deaf adults and have a place where they can not only enhance their language ability, but ask them questions about being deaf and language development and cultural pieces and all of that. So it's a really great team, and they've been wonderful to work with. And then these are our interpreter mentors. So these are the ones that are working with them on their interpreting development. And as you can see, they're from all over. We work, it's all online because we have people from all over. We need to be able to work with interpreters from all over. We wanted to make sure that we were addressing interpreters who lived in rural areas, who are often neglected and don't have access to real in-depth, rich training opportunities. We predominantly work with Canvas, GoReact, which is like a feedback software, and Zoom, which is a video conferencing software. This is just a snapshot. I'm really proud of what we created in Canvas. So what we have is we have in-depth, rich, structured language exercises that they have to work through every week on their own, and they're all video-based. And they have to post everything in ASL, and then they have meetings with a language coach twice per month, and they build upon that and talk about the things that they're seeing in their language, their weekly language exercises. And then they meet once a month for professional development sessions. This is a group that's an actual screenshot of a meeting taking place. And we go over a whole host of different professional development topics for working in the classroom. And then this is just a screenshot of GoReact. So this is somebody providing an ASL to spoken English interpretation of the student, and then you can provide feedback in ASL or written English, so they will provide that feedback and then meet and talk about it some more. So again, it's highly individualized, highly specialized to that specific interpreter's needs and where they need to be able to develop their skills and become more fluent. And I just like to reiterate that our goal in helping interpreters is never miss that the reason we help interpreters is because we know that that translates into helping students who are deaf and hard of hearing and adults who are deaf and hard of hearing have access to linguistic and cultural inclusion and educational inclusion. And so that's never lost on us because we're really helping a lot of interpreters, but we know because in turn that helps the deaf and hard of hearing populations that they work with, which is them. That's all. I hope I stayed within my 10 to 15 minutes. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Jen. Thought it's interesting to see this. A lot of the folks, especially in TACE and the TA division, are out and about doing their work, and we don't see them in-house frequently. And I think it's good to focus on the work that you're doing across the country. So thank you. Okay, let me get here. I'm starting to get nervous about that pounding outside. Are you guys notice these screens shaking on the wall? I'm like, okay. This is the next one. So as I mentioned in that email I sent out last week, I hope everybody had a chance to watch that 30-minute video from the Utah Department of Health. Over the next year, we're going to focus a bit on training. So if you remember when I first came in, we took about 6 months and did accessibility training with WebAIM. And that was great, but it was really hard for people to carve that time out in addition to staff meetings and everything else. So kind of what I've thought is using our staff meeting time, part of it, every month for the next year to really focus on some training aspects instead of me just telling you what's going on. We will do some more of that, but I think it's important, especially nowadays, to really highlight how important cultural and linguistic competency is in the services that that we provide. I think that Jen's program is a perfect example. We don't ever think of linguistic competency necessarily when it comes to a deaf or hard of hearing population, but it's extraordinarily important that you have that competence and that ability to translate correctly so that kids, again, can make educational progress and actually keep up in the classroom. It's the same in all of our services, whether it's early intervention or accessibility or mental health or anything else, that we're aware of the cultural backgrounds that people are bringing to our programs and that we have the tools necessary to effectively address those backgrounds. Our country, in spite of what you may hear on the news or otherwise, is becoming increasingly diverse, and it's probably not going to change anytime in the near future. So what we're going to do today, Eduardo is going to take the rest of the meeting, and I promised I would wave at him when time's getting close, right? So we will get out on time, but really he's going to walk us through sort of a picture, a portrait of what's going on in our state and our country with regards to diversity, and how does that potentially intersect with our programs. It's really interesting that the growth in diversity in our country is not necessarily coming from people outside the country coming in. The growth in diversity is coming from within our country, people who are already here, who are living here, who have families here and deep roots here. And I think that's something important to keep in mind. So anyway, it is my privilege to welcome Eduardo. Eduardo and I have a long history. I met Eduardo for the first time in 2014 at the USED Leadership Institute in Delaware when he went out to that. And Eduardo and I spent a fun week there and got to know each other quite well. And I've really respected and enjoyed interfacing with him since I've been here. So anyway, Eduardo, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
You see, this is it's hard to get rid of me. Anyway, I really appreciate the time and the opportunity to share what I think is important, and I think that the series about cultural linguistic competency is structured to share information at different levels, at the national level, at the state level, and at the local level. And also we are going to focus first in what is happening here, what is the framework, what is our current reality. Then we are going to focus in some issues, that is going to be the next presentation. And we are going to approach with some solutions, because we have the problem, what is happening, and the solution. And the last part is, I think, what we are doing in relation with this area that I think is critical for the nation, as you are going to see based on numbers, just based on facts. So today we are going to talk about demographic change. What is happening? What is happening based on race and ethnicity? What is happening based on ages? what is happening based on our cultures of element that are close to us. We are living in a more rural places compared with other areas. It's different, our region compared with the East Coast or with the West Coast that is more urban. So we want to talk about also what is happening here, close to us, and some of the impacts that really is having, because we are going to talk about health disparities and some social disparities that are impacting in the population. We will talk about resources and a little bit at the end, approaching to solutions. As I said, we are going to dedicate just one presentation about our potential solutions about what is happening here. So I would like to start with just one question to make it interactive. Why do you think cultural competency is important? Why? Why is important? Jane.
Because it's the way that we frame everything that we see. And from my culture is how I view this world. So if I understand other frames, it helps me have a more well-rounded view.
Thank you, Jane. So it is going to give us more information, and that information is going to help us to be more effective. If we are more effective in the services that we are providing, the communication that we are having, we are going to have better outcomes. Thank you. What else? This presentation, by the way, is said to be multidisciplinary, so from different perspectives. I would like you to look at from different perspectives, from the financial, from the business, from...
I went to school in New Zealand, and I had a professor tell me that there isn't a diverse and cultural linguistic population. We are all culturally and linguistically diverse to each other. So I think if we think about it in that context, it's important because we're talking about ourselves too, not just someone else's culture.
Absolutely, absolutely. Everybody is part of their own culture, and each of us is part of our own culture as well. That is the framework. Let me tell you just an example. I have a JD. I'm from Ecuador. I have a lawyer degree. And for me, law is important. So one of the things related with cultural competency here is when somebody told me, you know, just one word costs $20 million to a hospital. I say, how was it? And because it was a wrong translation, the person was explaining. So when I was digging up with some information, it was called the $20 million word. In Spanish, when you say the person is intoxicated, it means that is drunk. But when you say that the person is intoxicated, it is with food poisoning. But here, when somebody said the person is intoxicated, it is because the person is drunk. So just that word, when at the hospital was in an emergency, say that person is intoxicated, but it meant that was with food poisoning. And the treatment took a different direction. It cost to the hospital $20 million. It's a legal example of cultural competency that costs a lot of money, in addition to all the health issues. So from the legal perspective, for example, it is going to reduce litigation, potential liabilities. But the same from the financial perspective. We are going to save a lot of money. There is a study that says that it's over $1 trillion that we are going to save if we are cultural competent. It is a lot of money. What else? What are other reasons why CLC is important? It is going to increase the quality of care. If we are more cultural competent, we are going to have better quality of care. If we are cultural competent, we are going to have more diverse clientele. So we are going to have more customers. We are going to reach out to a large population that it is in need, as we are going to see. As you can see.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, is the fact that we're working with individuals with disabilities, and we need to understand that they have other frames, other intersects in their identity that they are bringing to the table. And so if we can understand how those parts of their identity intersect, then we can provide them better help.
Absolutely, absolutely. And sometimes it means, maybe more time with our cases, because probably the people that we are working with require more time. And those things, we need to think in advance. That is going to help us to improve our outcomes. I know time is an issue at this point, so I'm going to speed up. I have a lot of information in this presentation. Elements of culture. We are talking about elements of culture. There are so many different elements of culture: race, ethnicity, age, gender identity, country of origin, education, SES, income. Many. We can see diversity from many different perspectives. However, for this presentation, I'm going to focus on three important elements of culture that I would like you to think about it. The first one is race and ethnicity, because it is an important group that we need to understand better. The second is about the geography. We are living in a more rural place, therefore many of the services might be a little bit different compared with the more urban places. Because rural places, we might have many different challenges. Transportation might be one of the challenges. Everything is not close as in other places. Age is an interesting factor that we need to look at. This nation, as a nation, is not as young as we can think. Utah is different. Actually, Utah is, if we look at the age, Utah is an outlier, but it's not the same what is happening here compared with what is happening in most of the other states. Socioeconomic status and abilities, because it is part of the work that we are doing every time. Briefly, what is happening now? Nationwide, 76.6% is coming from the white population. I'm using the terminology from the census, by the way. Black or African is 13%, Native American 1.3%, Asian 5.8%, Hispanic Latino 18%, two or more races 3%, and if we just look at white alone without Hispanic population is 61%. Just in numbers, because percentage sometimes it is too aggregated. We, especially here at the CPD, we think on people, It's not just a number, it's the people. Let's look at here. This nation has around 330 million people, 329. Around 60 million, or 18.1%, is Hispanic Latino. And we have 70 million who are non-Hispanic or Latino and are not white. So if we added all the minorities, we have 130 million people. It is a large number. It is. Let's think on that. But when we are looking at the region, as we can see here, I just put some of the states that are more familiar, because I work in your land, and those are your land states. I know a little bit more about the demography. We can see that this race and ethnicity is not equally distributed among all the states. If we see here in Utah, for example, the large majority is Hispanic Latino. But if we look at Montana, it is Native American. That creates an interesting difference. Sometimes we just see from what we are surrounded, but it is different. Let's look at just visually. You can see there visually. What is happening in our states also is not what is happening nationwide. Look at there, for example, if you compare Native Americans between United States and Montana. Montana has a much more larger population of Native American population. And that's why justify that Montana has a Native American post-secondary institution. However, here in Utah, how many Native American post-secondary institutions do we have? 0. We don't have anyone, even though we have 5 different tribes. Another trivia question.
Can we go back to to that earlier slide?
Sure.
I think it's important. This shocked me when Eduardo brought this to me earlier this week. We like to think that Utah is a relatively non-diverse state, and these are all Intermountain West states. We have the most diverse state of any state in the Intermountain West, and I think that is fascinating.
Yeah. But as we keep disaggregating, we are going to see that Cache Valley or Logan is not as diverse with other places here in Utah. And I have a slide about that. So just think about it. We are from a macro view to a more a micro view. And there we have. Where we have much more diversity, it is in Salt Lake. Salt Lake City, we have 36% of. So what does it mean? Is that sometimes minority are in some specific place. I won't say, enclaves, but they are grouped in some specific places. If we just look at the local level, it's not equally distributed among the city. The west side with the east side doesn't have the same proportion. I was looking, by the way, in Cache Valley, some towns, they have 98% of the total population are white. So it is not equally distributed.
How did Heber City make the list?
Park City probably is going to be much more lower, and many of the people who work in Park City probably sleep in Heber City. So just, again, it's not equally distributed. Martha put it an early version that I sent him, so every time that I revise, I keep adding. So there are additional ideas in my mind I'm going to keep sharing. This is an important graphic that I would like you to look at. The age. Age is another element of culture. And it is not equally distributed among ages, what we have seen. What is happening now? One of those slides that I added, but I didn't include here, is at the nation wide, the average, the age average, it is 41 years. So it means that the nation, the United States, is a nation of older people, and becoming older. No Utah. Utah, again, is it is the exception. So what is happening here in Utah, the age average was 30 years, 31 years. So what is happening in Cache Valley? Even younger. Probably because the university is here. In part, it might influence. 26 years, the age average. So what happened about the Hispanic Latino here in Cache Valley? Even younger. It is 21 years. What does it mean, and how it impacting the work that we are doing? It means that the population is young, and what Mark was saying at the beginning is very important, because the majority of the new minority people is going to come from people who are already here. So it's newborns here. It's not coming from immigrants. It's people who are already born here. And that is important. They are going to be second generation of immigrants. They are going to be Americans already. At the national perspective, you can see here just the trajectory from 2000 to 2020, that is next year. In 2000, 61% of of people under 18 years were white, non-Hispanic. In 2010, it was just 54. And next year is 50%. So next year, if we count everyone under 18, one of every two is going to come in from minority groups. But even more shocking is, if you look at that graphic, 2012, I think it was historic. For me as a social demographer, it was historic because in 2012, the majority of newborn babies were coming from minority groups. 2012, so 1 of every 2 children, newborn babies, came in from minority. What does it mean? If we just look at the children under 5, now the majority are coming from minority groups. And that is not stable. It is increasing in number. Therefore, up to 3, or those programs who are looking at young children, what is happening? They are going to see more and more and more minorities. Why this is important? Because we are going to provide services. We are going to work with young children, and we need to understand what you were saying. We need to understand better the people that we are working with. We need to know them. Then we are going to be more effective. It's not only communication, it's to be effective. Because that is going to bring us to the next part of this presentation, that it is what is happening now. There are inequalities, health inequalities, just facts. That is what I'm going to share. Here is the trajectory of the percentage of young population coming from, in this case, from Hispanic Latino. In 1980, it was just 9%, but now it's 1 of every 4 children are coming from the Hispanic Latino population. And the Hispanic Latino is very diverse as well. You know, when we say Hispanic Latino, we are talking about more than 20 different countries. And even in a small country like Ecuador, my reference is Colorado. Ecuador is a little bit smaller than Colorado. And still we have 14 different nations and 13 different pueblos. It's a lot of diversity. So if you, when somebody say, you know, Hispanic or Latino might have same characteristics, I might expand the conversation too, because it is not the case from my perspective. This is a summary of what we are looking at. Trajectories to 2060. So probably my grandchildren, I think, are going to be part of it, of this statistic. But so just you see what is happening in 2060. Just 35%, or 1 of every 3 children under 18 are going to come from the white population. And 2 of 3 are going to come from minority groups. Still 40 years ahead, but it is coming, one day at a time. Let's come, disaggregate a little bit more what is happening in youth, and we can see here percentage of total population of students with a disability. Just Hispanic represent 20%. That is an important percentage of probably people that you are working with. It is a map that the point I want to make here is we are in a region that is more rural. Therefore, our diversity is different of what is happening in the East Coast and as well in the West Coast. We are more rural. Therefore, our challenges in the field of disabilities might be different. As you were saying, Jane, you know, probably distant education or other resources are going to be more meaningful for people who it's difficult to access or to go to specific places. So, with this part covered, what are you seeing in your location, in your field, in your programs related with demographics? What is happening?
Well, I think you made an important point about, you know, the population is growing from people that are already in the United States, because just like you're talking about Latino, the grouping coming from 20 different countries, like I grew up in Wisconsin, and you know what's considered white right now, you know, if you were to try to convince the Germans and the Italians and the Irish and, you know, people from England that they were all one monolithic group, you know, I mean, there was such drastic differences between those groups, you know, the first generation, second generation, but then when the kids are born here, then they're just kind of more like Americans, and there's, you know, less and less cultural differences. So I think that kind of that same thing is happening. You know, you know, for the last 5 years, I attended a church that, you know, Spanish-speaking church, and, you know, all the people from different countries, Mexico, you know, Peru, name others, Chile. Chile. I'm thinking Guatemala. There's a lot of people from Guatemala. You know, their cultures are vastly different. And then, like you said, then there's the whole difference between people that are kind of indigenous and then a blend of people that have, you know, other outside influences. You know, it's just, even though there's 17%, you know, it's still, there's a lot of diversity within that. You know, maybe the only thing that's shared is the language, and even then, you know, the language can be really different.
Yeah, and sometimes we generalize, and important difference we can find within those groups. I was sharing past Friday in another presentation at Ireland that sometimes I go to for example, to a well check at the hospital, and the clerk gave me, just see me and gave me documents in Spanish. And I love Spanish. You know, it's my primary language. It's how, when I want to be serious with my kids, I speak in Spanish. Then I know exactly what I'm saying them. I love it. But when they give me this Spanish form, I prefer the English one. Why? Just something simple. Because it's confusing, the Spanish version. It's sometimes confusing. And the information, and I know because I understand what they are asking me. It's not because I want to be picky, but also I want to be resourceful on what other people are getting, what is the information that they are getting. And when I asked it to the clerk, you know, why you are giving me this information in Spanish? And the answer was, because I am a good guesser. Of course, I am a Hispanic person. But it doesn't mean that they are providing the best service to me at the entrance point. So probably you are looking at these trends in diversity in your programs, the people that you are serving. Another thing that I think is important, because we have been doing a lot of work in South Main Clinic as part of the Ireland program, is that the first generation of immigrant is different with the second generation of immigrant. But the first generation of immigrants is a tremendous resource for helping to the second generation. And sometimes we discard at the school, at the program. The first generation, I was challenged by my kids many times when they came and say, "Oh, your mother wrong." And I was asking why. The outcome is the same. Oh yeah, but I do this math problem in a different way. But I say this is the same solution that we found. It took me a lot of time, effort, thinking to go to the school, talk with the teacher, do the same problem in 2 different ways until regain the confidence of my kid. But how many have that opportunity? I am fortunate that sometimes the schedule is flexible here, so I could do that. But many people cannot. So the point that I want to make is that the first generation of immigrants are a great resource that sometimes we are not using it, and we should maximize. There are a lot of human capital that we are not using. And we can just ask sometimes. The socioeconomic status, there is a high correlation between education and income. But it doesn't happen with the first generation of immigrants, because you can find a very well-educated people with a lot of knowledge who are still poor. Therefore, there are pieces that we are not maximizing. And that human capital, sometimes they don't work because of money. They just want to volunteer. Sometimes they want just to have the opportunity to be useful or helpful. Just insight. So let's go a little bit of what is happening related with disparities here in the US. Of course, the national agency like the CDC and its partners are working to reduce the current disparities that we can find among racial, ethnic, geographic, socioeconomic groups. To reduce these disparities require national leadership as well as local leadership. And I appreciate, Ahmad, that you are taking in consideration those efforts, because leadership, I think, is critical to make changes. The social determinants of health, as we know, it is more important sometimes where do you live. If you live in the west side or in the east side, to know how is your health status. There are so many social determinants that sometimes are influential and we don't consider, as we are going to see here through some examples. Well, child visits in the last month, people who has low SES or who are poor, they have a lower percent compared with the people who have a higher income, who has a larger percentage of well child visits. And we can see also similar trend between race and ethnicity. So the white population have a larger percentage of well child visits compared with other minority groups. This is a slide that I use several years because I think it has a good representation of what is happening. The emergency visits, emergency room visits based on race, based on geographies, based on family structure, based on education, and based on income. So in summary, who are the people who visit the most to the emergency room? That, by the way, is more expensive, more stressful in general. Minority groups, rural places or non-metropolitan places, non-metropolitan areas, who has just a father or not mother, people with lower education, and people with lower income. They are the ones who visit the most, by the way. The most expensive way. So, for instance, family income lower than 35,000 is at 8.6%, compared with just 3% of people who earn 100,000 or more. So it's 3 times more. Can you imagine 3 times or more visiting the emergency room? Just I think my oldest child visited the emergency room, and I don't want him to get back, not only for the health issues, but later on for the bills. It was so expensive. And this is a slide that is giving you the same story. Minority groups are the ones who usually have higher levels of unemployment and uninsurance rates. But that is interesting also if I am more familiar with the Hispanic Latino population, and you can see that the employment rates there, the unemployment rate is low, but still the percentage of poverty is very high. So we can be employed, but we still are in the poverty line. Okay, I don't want to get you bored with this data, but if you have questions, please let me know. This is another example related with the geography. Compared with their urban counterparts, people from rural are usually older, poorer, more likely to be overweight, and sicker. So some health indicators, like even life expectancy, is statistically significant. There are years of difference between the urban and the rural related with life expectancy. Unemployment related with disability population. You can see there, it is 3 points difference compared with people without disability. So abilities is another diverse group that are important for us because it is the population that we work with. Look at that. This is what I was saying at the beginning. $1 trillion is costing to our nation because of disparities. That's a lot of money. Just think about it. Let's talk a little bit about Utah. What is happening here? This is a slide that troubled me a little bit. I would like to spend a lot of time on that, but we don't have. But I want to share with you what it's telling us. By the way, because of just these statistics, I got one federal grant because the need is right there. Look the second paragraph. Just for the Native American population, 27 out of 28 health indicators show disparities between Native American population and the general population in Utah. This is Utah. That is a big, big difference. What is telling us? Something is happening. Something is happening. And the same with the other groups, with Hispanic Latinos, maybe not at the same level. But you can see there, from 43 different indicators, 28 show persistent disparities among Hispanic Latino population. That is a big number. And that is also an opportunity for us to work and to approach to solutions. Other group of this, other minority groups is refugees. And you can see also the needs there. I think that just that paragraph, those paragraphs is telling us an important fact. And this information is coming from a report from the Department of Utah. It's the Utah Health Department. So it is official. "27 out of 28 health indicators show health disparities." And let's look at some data that is coming from a work that we have been doing. The past year, at the end of past year and beginning of this year, we end finishing an evaluation for the Utah State Office of Rehabilitation. So we collected a lot of data from many different stakeholders. We got data from people who were receiving services, from people who were in the waiting list to receive services, data from the students and parents of children with disabilities. We got data from the community providers. We got data from the staff of Utah State Office of Rehabilitation. It is a long report that it is 200 pages or so. But I just chose a few slides that show the data compared between a white population and non-white population. When I say non-white population, it means all the minority groups. It means Hispanic, Latino, Native American, Black, refugees, all the non-white. So that means that you need to be a little bit cautious because, and it was because of the numbers. If we put it together of all the responses that we had, they represent around 11.5% of the total sample that answer these questions. So you can see there some of the needs from the people who received services between white and non-white. And when you see the asterisk, you can see that there is a statistically significant difference on career decision, on education, on job search, assistive technology, mental health, healthcare, transportation, legal, and housing. You can see there at the top are the first one that I mentioned, and at the bottom, the lowest mentioned from these surveys. If you have questions at any point, please let me know. Here is perceived needs of between white and non-white population based on the eligible awaiting group. So people currently who are waiting for services through Utah State Office of Rehabilitation, they put it at the top, the most perceived needs, and at the low part, the less perceived needs. So what are the top perceived needs? Locating employers. So employment is a very important part for people with disabilities here in Utah. Understanding health benefits, paying for school training, learning what jobs are available, learning what programs benefits are eligible for, choosing a suitable job, assessing my interests and abilities, job coaching, writing a resume, hands-on learning, improving self-advocacy skills, understanding how work will impact my benefits, pursuing self-employment, job coaching to train on a job site, finding and paying for a place to live, supported employment services, life skill training, obtaining prescription drugs, and services to help me with depression or anxiety. By the way, each of those are opportunities for us to approach for solutions. So it means that we have opportunities to work or to approach developing solution. And that is very current. It was just published March 2019, so a few months ago. So that data is current. The same difference we start looking at between a rural and urban population. And we can see there. Any question at this point, based on what you have seen, based on minority groups here, perceived needs hearing, and also based on perceived needs based on rural, urban groups? Let's go to something more fun then. I have a lot of data, I told you. Okay, this one is also interesting. The community rehabilitation partner, CRP, perceptions. So they are the providers to the services that work with Utah State Office of Rehabilitation. And they look they are telling us what is available, what is limited available, and what is not available. So the red color is the unavailable services. And culturally services was one that was constant among some of the providers. So we covered a lot of information. We saw demographic trends. We saw health disparities here. My question for you is, what challenges related to health disparities have you faced, and how have you approached those? Or what can you do to address these disparities? What we are doing? First of all, I show you there is a problem. Yes, it is a problem, and this is a significant problem. So now, how we are approaching, how we are solving those? Because I don't think it is fair just to say, okay, 27 out of 28 health indicators show disparities among Native American population and the mainstream how we are approaching those issues, how we are solving.
I think one really important piece to the puzzle is having members of those communities have a seat at the table and have them making those decisions, and have it be representative of what the Utah population actually looks like. Because if we have a whole bunch of white people making decisions for ethnic minorities, then it's not our lived experience. We can't really make those decisions in an informed way.
Great. That is one of the solutions. Next, I was planning to talk a little bit about something that is called CLASS. I think I took away, right? Yeah. CLASS, it is Cultural and Linguistic Appropriate Services Standards. That is at the national level. And one of the main points that they say, yeah, we need to include people from those diverse groups and at all the levels, at all the levels in the programs, at the government level, at the professional level, at all the levels, because we need to understand better. There is not just one perspective. We need to include them at all the levels with the power of decision would be even better. Somebody.
Eduardo, can you roll back the slides way, way, way back? You had a picture of the cross-section of the United States with the counties, the frontier counties. Do you remember
Yes.
that one? Yes, that's it. Utah has got such an odd demographic in this. It's more like Colorado than it is anything else. Because those rural counties, I've been in each of those rural counties. There's not much there. Yet our resources are all centered along the Wasatch Front. And I can't help but wonder if we keep playing the rural frontier aspects of our state, and we're missing, I think, the urban complexities that go on, and the demographics and the multicultural issues in the urban centers are way different. I'm not going to say they're more complex, but they've got a different spin than they do in the rural communities. And I can't help but think that that's a capacity that as a center we need to build a better appreciation for and a better ability to deal with those things.
And many of those answers is going to come collectively because there is a problem. And the numbers are showing in many of those frontier places are minority groups, like the Native American population. And then we see there those health disparities. And I agree with you. Probably it is our challenges that we need to approach in very creative ways, different ways. But the point is that there is a need. And that need sometimes it is bringing other problems. That it is not the purpose of this presentation to get there, but I know because I know the relationship that is between what is happening in some of those places. I totally agree. And the expertise is, I think, it needs to be from multidisciplinary. I agree. And also we can learn from other experience. Like Montana is a more rural place. Probably they have more resources that they have already developed, or they can share some of the work they have done. We need to learn from maybe from other experiences. Okay, let me just finish. Okay, just a final thought related with cultural competency. It is important that we acknowledge that there is a problem, and that is one of my main goals of this presentation. We need to acknowledge that there is a problem. Second, we need to have an attitude that we want to work together, to find solutions. Humility is one of the approach that show us this attitude. We need to have an attitude. It's not that we cannot be indifferent. Remember that the minority population are going to be who pay our social security in the future. So we need to help them to be healthy, to develop their maximal potential. Then we need to have knowledge. We need to be informed. And finally, we need to develop those skills to make us more effective to the challenge that the geography is giving us, the age is giving us, the multicultural approach is giving us. We need to have the skills to be effective and culturally competent to have effective solutions. So we have been looking at the demographic trends, at the health disparities, and we just start talking about some potential solutions that would be part of the next presentation. And I'm pretty sure that for the next time, you are going to be more proactive because you are going to share what you are doing, what we are doing to approach this problem, because that concerns to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Eduardo. So I think that's good homework. As Eduardo said, the idea is that you take some time to think about these trends, to think about these issues that are facing your programs, and then think about when you come to the next staff meeting, which I'm dropping things right and left. I'm going to just set that down there. Hopefully they can hear me. That you come ready to discuss some ideas, because it is if you don't feel it today, these are issues and these are demographic shifts that are going to affect all of us in the very near future. So I have included this in the last few staff meetings, but one of the reasons that we focus on this is that, and I'm using this as a mantra, actually I have it in my office now, but the CPD is not an independent entity striving for self-preservation. The CPD is the hub of an engaged community of stakeholders, and we strengthen our organization by building up, investing in, and connecting the interdependent stakeholders within that community through collaborative and intentional efforts that strengthen the community as a whole. It's important to understand that our communities are changing, and we need to be thoughtful about how we are addressing that change. So, okay, so now for the fun part. I'm quick because I promised I would have you out on time. Number one, I have 1 minute, but pretty close. Number one, this is the CPD Costume Grand Champion Trophy. Alyssa Hankey won it last year. Is that how you say her last name? Yeah, that's right. She couldn't be here, and she will not be here. She'll be on her honeymoon during that. But she did pass on the trophy and the world champ belt that you can wear for an entire year if you if you wear a costume party Halloween. So anyway, just a little incentive. The other question that came up is we had the social media photo contest and people submitted, and then Story and Jolynn and Kelly did the tabulation for the prize currently being acquired by Kelly in Iceland, I hope. I don't know. That's where she is. Okay, so you may, if you are among the winners, I am incredibly sorry. Ty Aller was the Twitter winner, had the most likes on Twitter for his photo of him mountain biking somewhere in the spring. Rachel Williams, most comments for her battles with humidity in Ohio, I think. The largest reach was Kevin, and Kevin had the most people. I guess you must have a massive social network, Kevin. I don't know. But the most people engaged with your post, which could be good or bad. I'm not entirely certain how to interpret that. I'm sorry about the next one. The Instagram winner was mine, my recreation of American Gothic. And if you are of a sensitive constitution, please shield your eyes. The last one is the Facebook winner. It is they shirtless Mark Innocenti with elephants. So anyway, Kelly will have prizes for the various winners, and thank you for those who participated. So upcoming meetings, just for your calendar, January 21st will be our next staff meeting. April 14th will be our one after that. Please try to schedule around these. Because we're going to be doing training, it's important that you be here. And then finally, in terms of important dates, September 19th, 2 days away, is National Talk Like a Pirate Potluck. I believe that is happening in this room.
Yes, and the room is reserved right till noon, so don't come early, you can't get in, but be here at noon in pirate costume, talking like a pirate with a problem high.
Yes. If you have not seen the TASTE staff dress up and talk like pirates, you are missing a real treat. So there's that. Our on-site intensive grants training is coming up October 1st and 2nd. Sean didn't bring this up because he's nice. We did look at who's registered from the CPD. Only 5 people are registered from the CPD. I have information here on how to register and get and attend that training. You do not have to attend the whole thing, but it would be great. If you are interested in learning more, Hanover does a really good training on grant writing. So come up and grab one of these handouts, and I will have them downstairs as well. October 18th, CPD Faculty Fellows applications are due, so Eduardo and Lisa's collaboration, a new round of those are coming out. If you have faculty in the department who you would like to collaborate with, please encourage them to apply for this upcoming fellowship. Finally, the USU Inclusive Excellence Symposium is October 30th. This is not something that we sponsor, but many staff here participate in it. And the whole intent is to encourage more inclusive programming here at the university. I would encourage you, if you can take out the time to attend that. A big focus this year is really acknowledging diversity. Disability is an aspect of diversity. And so if you can make time for that, it would be great. The 31st is the Halloween contest where you can win the belt and the prize. And then January 30th is Disability Advocacy Day at the Utah State Capitol. This year we have reserved the rotunda of the Capitol. And we will be hosting a full-day disability advocacy event there, and we would like those of you who are interested in participating, you'll hear a lot more about that in the next couple of months, but put it on your calendar. We'd like to see you there participating with policymakers and community members to highlight disability issues here in Utah. So with that said, thank you all for coming. Pumpkin Spice and Cider is downstairs, and have a great rest of your day.
Save me a donut. I can't do it, man. I can't take it to you.